Hello and welcome to Marketing Monday. I hope you're as excited as I am to start the week off right. My name is Brittany Sweeney and I am the Communications Manager with the Livestock Conservancy. Here with me today, I have some extra special, wonderful people talk about some chickens. We've got Ryan. He's going to talk about chickens even though he loves pork. And we have Shelly Oswald, who's going to talk about all the wonderful business aspect of raising chickens. So we are so excited. Peeping with excitement, maybe. I've been using that line all month. It's my favorite. Can't help myself. The bad puns. Anyway, we're so glad you're here. We're so glad you're joining us. Ryan, do you want to take it away before I have any more puns that are going to embarrass me?
Yes, let me just take it over real quick. Everybody, my name is Ryan Kierton. I am the Breed Association Manager for the Livestock Conservancy. And today we have a special guest. It's Shelley Oswald. Round of applause for Shelley. Oh, yes. Shelley, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. That way they can get kind of acquainted and familiarized with who you are.
We have a farm in Western Pennsylvania, old time farm, and we raise partridge, Chanticleer, standard bronze turkeys, and American milking Devon cattle. So everything that we do is based on conservation of rare breeds, and we also bring local foods to our regional market. So, and then to top that off, I'm an accountant, QuickBooks Pro advisor, and a Profit First professional, and also help farmers.
Y'all, she's got clouts. She said she's an accountant. That's, I know when I had first did a mock interview with Shelley, I was really impressed by the whole conversation. But one thing that really intrigued me was the fact that she had an accounting background. So really quickly, Shelley, kind of talk about your accounting experience and how that's helped you understand what is profitable and what's not profitable for your farm.
Okay. Unlike a lot of accountants, I never really worked in the tax and that sort of frame. I did like a couple of stints here and there, but most of my business experience was with, or accounting experience was with businesses. So we had a tractor dealership and a school bus business, and my husband had a contracting business. So my concentration was focused on managing those businesses. So when we sold our business and bought the farm, the farming is one of the most difficult business models that there is. So I started looking for some simpler ways to, like one of the things I needed to do was automate. So I wasn't spending a lot of time on inefficient processes and doing things that were redundant with paperwork. So that kind of led me into the QuickBooks Online Pro Advisor and learning more detail about how to use QuickBooks and automate. But then I became a Profit First professional because I was looking for an easier system to manage cash. And it's so simple. It just uses bank accounts like you use the old envelope system. And you allocate your money into that, and it helps you leverage your natural tendency to expand into whatever resource is available, and it helps you restrict that and look for more efficiencies.
Ooh, man. Oh man. Y'all, it's going to be a great conversation. I can already tell y'all. Well, really quickly, in our previous conversation, Shelley, you mentioned labeling being a issue within heritage breeds, and just in general when it comes to consumers understanding what exactly a label means. So I know in your experience, you had actually dropped that heritage label that's provided by APA. Kind of talk about that experience and what led you to dropping that label.
Yeah, we were one of two farms in the country that were producing for production. One was Frank Reese's farm, and he was doing it on a big scale, and then ours is on a small scale. That it was the standard bred certification from the American Poultry Association, and for me, like Frank, it's different because he's selling his poultry wholesale to somebody else who's selling it retail. So what's on a label really matters. For me, I decided that I did not want to do that. I wanted to concentrate on feeding my my region as opposed to feeding the world. And since we sell direct to consumer, I did not need that because I was dealing with people directly. So it's like, even though we have various practices, and I can put some things on the website, the majority of it, because I'm dealing with people and selling to them directly, that actually has worked out better for me. And it was just not worth my time or the expense for me to have that certification.
Time or expense. That's one thing about one thing I teach people is understanding market opportunity. And sometimes you start looking at how much time and energy you start putting into pursuing a particular different market, and you realize that it's not worth the time, it's not worth the energy, it's not worth the money that goes into that. So that's really great to hear. I know one thing that kind of struck me was really how there's this bot trust system. And you talked about Frank Reese, who's a good friend of ours. We love Frank Reese. He's awesome. He was on the Turkey Marketing Monday, if y'all remember that.
Yeah,
Go check that video out, folks. But yeah, one thing about bot trust is when you get to these huge, big markets where you have less and less access, consumers having less and less access to the farmer to actually produce that product. Marketing is extraordinarily important. But like you had mentioned, being able to have that more consolidated, small scale operation where you are only focused on local folks really allows for you to have your story be shared in a way where you have more control over that than the market does. And I think that's really awesome. You mentioned in our previous conversation there being kind of some inaccurate assumptions when it comes to labeling. Could you talk about that a little bit?
I can't remember exactly what I was talking about. I mean, there's a lot of inaccuracies in labeling. There's so much greenwashing, and even with the heritage. I mean, the heritage is huge. I mean, people think that they can label any slow growing animal as being heritage, but the reality is that they need to be at least representative. In poultry, well, poultry is a little bit different because they're not genetically pedigreed, and that is not what determines the breed. What determines the breed is how they look. They have to appear like the breed. If they don't appear like the breed, then they are not the breed. Even though they may genetically be the breed, they would not qualify in the standard, and that would not qualify as heritage because they do not represent the breed. Now with cows or pigs, something that's a pedigreed animal, that those ones, the heritage label will come down through as being the breed because of the parents being that. But there's a lot out there, where people are putting out, animals that are hybrids as being heritage, when in reality they're not. They're just slow growing, and there's a big differentiation, and that ends up being, some whitewashing. And I don't know that consumers are really as concerned about. I don't think that they're really concerned about the heritage term. I don't think a lot of them even understand it, even though it's become a buzzword. But for us, the real wealth in that is the conservation of these old breeds, and the fact that we're bringing animals that were pushed aside for production reasons, but have an absolute wealth of genetic traits that as production animals and industrial production becomes more and more concentrated, they're losing genetic diversity in these industrial animals. And our animals actually hold some answers to correcting problems with them.
Mhm. Thank you for mentioning, especially that last part. With the work that we do at the Livestock Conservancy, we believe in bipartisanship, because we understand that our heritage breed conservation priority lists are both beneficial for people who are doing things homestead, or raising for local meat, or for local services, whether it's goat grazing, or whether it's you have a Suffolk horse that's carrying timber, whatever it might be. But also, our heritage breeds have a vital role in commercial industry, especially if anything went wrong. If anything went wrong, and we're crossing fingers, right? We're crossing fingers. But if anything did go wrong, we want to be able to make sure that we have enough genetic diversity conserved, not preserved, but conserved. So that way, if the larger industry needed to pull from heritage breeds, they would have that, and that our whole food economy would not crash when it comes to meat. So thank you again, Shelley, for just even bringing that part up. We really appreciate it. I know, again, in a previous conversation, we talked about how you've kind of tried to limit, especially as it relates to chickens, to just one breed. Talk about how that focus was really needed to be profitable.
Well, you had mentioned it before, and I'm gonna recommend a book to you. It's called Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz. If you haven't read it, you really need to read it. And it's interesting because, I mean, my original, whenever I looked at it, I wanted just one breed of chicken and one variety of turkey. And I wanted to make sure that I stayed within one variety so that I was able to concentrate on making sure that I had the best traits and was able to focus, intently on that particular animal and improving it and making sure I understood it. I think whenever you have too many breeds or varieties, especially when you're new, that that it really makes it difficult for you to become good at what you do because your attention's all over the place. Well, in the Pumpkin Plan, it's really interesting because what he talks about is calling your business enterprises down to more of a niche place where you can get too scattered and you lose efficiencies by doing that. So with our animals, we do that as well. It's like our farms, we try to have like all these different enterprises and we try to stack all these. Well, each one is actually a separate little business. And then that happens too with markets. When you look at it, you've got markets, and if you go to all these different markets, and if you're running around and you're not getting enough return on the market, that you're actually losing money that you could use and time is a non-renewable resource, but you lose the time that you could be focusing on something else that would better improve where you're at. So I think that what I have found is that, where I started off broader, I've started to narrow things down, and I liken it to my chickens, where I call them down to the best, that my customers, I focus on my best customers. I focus on I was doing 5 farmers markets. I dropped it down to 1.
Ooh.
And I made more money at one farmer's market, by focusing on that area and that market, that I doubled my income. So the more you focus and the more you refine that, the better you're able to share your message, the better you're able to take care of your customers, your animals. And we're looking at that and trying to decide, where we want to be on scale, with the birds. Do we want to keep a 300 bird flock of Chanticleer? Yeah. Right now we have a 300 bird flock of Chanticleer breeder birds, no growers. That's just breeders. And we have 100 standard bronze turkeys. And we're trying to make a decision as to, like, where do we want to go with scale on that?
Shelley Oswald, everybody. Rich information. Oh my goodness. One thing that if I even had to add anything on would be, you mentioned again focusing so that way you can actually do good in what you're doing rather than being so spread out that you end up becoming a master of none. I really like the idea of being an expert in what you're doing. I think that's really, really important. I get so many calls or emails saying, oh, I raised this breed and 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 this breed of just chickens. Just chickens, not even get into goats or pigs. This is just chickens, 8 breeds of chickens, right? And it's just kind of like, okay, yeah, okay, we can work with that. But really being able to consolidate and say, you know what, I want to put my effort into one breed, whether it's for 5 years, well, whether it's for 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years. We have a staff member, Jeanette Behringer. She is our senior programs manager, and she spent, I want to say somewhere around a decade, at least a whole 10 years, really refining the Buckeye chickens. And after, again, a decade, she said, all right, now it's time to move on to crab courses, and she's almost spent another decade working with that breed, and so people can call her an expert when it comes to Buckeyes and crab courses because she's put that singular focus on that breed and spent years perfecting that breed. And that's one thing that I really want to encourage for anyone who's thinking about breeding or even just regular production for heritage breeds. Don't be a master of none. Don't get all the heritage breeds. Focus on the 1 or 2 that you really love and make that great. Improve that breed genetically.
Oh, I think we lost Ryan.
Oh, I thought it was just me.
Breeder.
Nope. Ryan, are you still here?
Oh, what happened? Did I blip out of existence? Did that happen? I was just talking. How long was I even talking for?
You were just like 10 years and then frozen.
Oh God, no. Well, okay. I don't know what y'all heard.
I think you got most of your soapbox. So. I think he froze.
Okay, I'm back. All right, I'm back. Point of the story is be an expert, stick to one breed per species, and really refine that species, market that species well. Let's go to some questions because apparently live does not want me to talk anymore. So if you have any questions, Brittany, or hellos.
Yes, let's see. We've got a couple. Hi, Lisa. Lisa Maria, thanks for joining us today. We're so glad you're here. We got some shout outs. Let's see. Hi, Erin. Thanks for joining us today. We're so glad you're here. We're Zooming today, so I can't put your questions up on the board here, but I'm just going to read them out. Aaron says, what about introducing a new old sustainable breed, breeding up to purebred to offset oversized show ring breeds? Does that count as heritage, I guess? I think that came in when we all were talking about heritage breeds.
So let me make sure I get this question right. So is Aaron, what's her last name?
Well, hold on, let me pull it up. It just
Oh.
it was
I think
also
I think I understand what she's asking. There's conservation breeders and there's progressive breeders. Progressive breeders, in my experience, have been ones that are willing to bring in other breeds to improve the breed, to speed things up and speed the change of things, as opposed to just refining the flock that they have to in the realm of size and shape. And I think at least for me, that if you have a large enough, if you focus on one breed and can have a large enough flock that you can keep all the breeding tools in your toolkit, that you have the genetics. Like ours is very difficult because our comb is genetic, with the Chanticleer, the comb's genetic. And then being partridge, the partridge pattern is very specific. So so making sure that you have the genetic, understanding your breed and doing your research and having the genetic tools in your toolbox so that you can make those changes. It may take you a little bit more time to do that, but every time you introduce another breed, you're going to have a whole variety of things that you need to call out. So, my experience has been that I've made, much better gains just by making sure I have a diverse enough flock, and that as I go through and make my culling decisions, that I make sure that I keep the traits that I do not have, regardless of how whether that bird is perfect or not. I keep the traits that I need to add to my flock and keep all of those tools in my toolbox. Does that answer her question?
I think so.
I think that does. Yeah. So normally for most folks, I don't know about chickens, but or poultry. I know with mammals, we talk about a grade up program. That's normally how we would categorize that. Um, it's an option, but one thing I will say is when you start doing that, like Shelley has mentioned, you are changing things that, for better or for worse, sometimes better. You are changing things in a way where you can't really get back to that, or if you do try to get back to that, it will take, again, culling, additional selection, versus if you just stick with this one breed and just kept breeding it, it would have been a lot easier. Maybe not a lot, but a little bit easier. So again, using Jeanette as an example, she actually has an American line of Crepe courses and a French line of Crepe courses. She imported some eggs from France, and so she has two different flocks, right? And she can utilize those flocks, every now and then, crossing the bloodlines, but she's still using the same breed regardless. I know that she had talked about there being a tasting for a particular bird. Won't get into the actual breed of chicken, and how one was a part of a grade up program where multiple different breeds were used to kind of improve the growing speed of that bird versus like the original heritage version of it. And one thing that they found out in the tasting is that the improved version was not as tasty. It didn't taste as good. There was a distinctive taste difference. And so when we're raising heritage breeds, it's not, it's low and slow. When we talk about cooking heritage meat, low and slow. There's a reason why it grows slow. With that slow growth, there tends to be higher flavor profiling. That's something that really allows for that breed to thrive is through that slower growth. You get a more quality product. If you're just going for fast and furious, you'll get a quicker product, but it won't taste the same. And so that's kind of where you start getting away from value, like true value of a breed versus just trying to be productive. And there's a balance to that, but I do think it's important to keep the integrity of the breed. That's my 2 cents. Thanks for asking that question, Aaron.
Yes, that's a great question. Let's see. Lisa Marie says, when I first started raising my own chickens, I decided to work with just Buckeyes. We really love them. It's really hard not to get chicken addiction and start raising more. We all know how chicken math works. She also says it's really hard to get good stock in Alaska. So that can always be a challenge.
I bet. Yeah. Send me an email. Let's try to figure that out together. I'd be interested in helping you out.
Yes, Lisa. Well, I'll post Ryan's email and everybody can email him all their questions.
I was like, we might need to have some eggs sent your way. I don't know. We'll figure something out.
I shipped Shauna Claire to Alaska, and it was 24 hours from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to, I believe it was Fairbanks. And within 24 hours, the Postal Service had them there. Now that wasn't recent. That was, a few years ago. But yeah, I was pretty impressed.
Nice. Thanks for jumping in today, Lisa. Shannon says Shelley is awesome. Thanks for that love today, Shannon. We're so glad you're enjoying everything. Let's see. Erin says thank you, and she was speaking of Teeswater and Wensleydale Gotland sheep were introduced and bred up to purebred via imported semen. She's working with Herdwick now and would like them listed. In that she needs a bull for her Irish Dexter. So lots of great breeds in there. Hi, Ivan. Thanks for joining us today. We're so glad you're listening in. Ivan says, what is a good dual purpose chicken heritage breed? I read recently about using the hens for eggs and the cocks for meat.
Is that for me?
Yeah. Any
that's for you.
recommendations you have?
I think it depends on where you live. For me, the Shauna Claire work well because we're in the Northeast and they have a small comb. I think probably the biggest thing to remember is when you're talking dual purpose, people think of dual purpose, an egg layer and a meat bird, or our Shauna Claire, they consider them a good winter layer. But what needs to be kept in perspective is what historic production would have been. We aren't talking about 200 eggs a year, 180 to 200 eggs on most of the dual purpose breeds was a record. So, we need to keep it in perspective. If you're looking for a bird that's going to be, a heavier meat bird as well as laying eggs, that they're going to be laying less eggs than a smaller, lighter breed will be. So, a lot of that's going to be keeping it into perspective. I would say it depends on your where you're at, because your comb really makes a difference with dissipating heat and whether you need to worry about frostbite or not. But wherever you can get, good genetics, and especially I think the other thing is that there's a regional adaptation of our breeds. And that's one thing that's not talked about a lot, but it takes a little bit of time for the breeds to adapt to where they're at and to become, genetically adapted to the region. And if you can get decent stock in an area where you're at, you will have a start that will be much better than bringing something in from further away. That's just my opinion.
Great question, Ivan. Thanks for asking today. Let's see. I think we've lost Ryan for a minute. So we'll just keep asking some questions if you don't mind, Shelley.
No, I'm good.
Awesome. Let's see. Lisa Marie asks, what are your thoughts on hatcheries selling chickens as heritage, even though they're mass produced? Also, do you think folks looking into buying heritage chicks should be buying from breeders or hatcheries?
I think some of it has to be, it's not so much the mass production that makes them heritage versus not. It's the fact of whether they represent the breed standard or not. So if you have a hatchery that is sourcing from a reputable breeder, and that hatchery has birds that represent the breed standard, then at that point in time, I think that that's okay. I know that when people have reached out to me for birds, chicks that have been looking at supplying a hatchery, that their focus is more on egg production than it is on, they don't focus on the carcass quality at all, because what their main focus is being able to reproduce more chicks to make more money. So I think that, that if you're looking for layers, that's not so bad. I think if you're looking for meat birds, I think that there's an issue. So, always I believe that a good breeder who is conscientious, that know their breed and are, paying attention to standard bred qualities, paying attention to, breed standard, that knows their genetics, and that you having direct contact with that breeder makes a big difference. Whenever you buy from a hatchery, you don't have that support.
I will say we have worked with some really good hatcheries that do have some good stock, so they're
Yeah.
not all mass produced. And I
But
can
you do lose the connection though, and you don't know the genetics and you're not able to ask questions.
sure, and finding that mentor and that connection with other breeders is always really important. Let's see. We'll keep sending your questions through. I don't see any more right now. Shelley, how did you get started with your Chanticleers? What drew you to those?
I was looking for a breed that was going to be cold hardy and dual purpose. I was the challenge of the partridge color really appealed to me. I grew up, when I was a kid, raising and showing dogs, and had done a lot with breeding that and those, as well as horses, throughout my life. So I had some pretty good basics on the genetics and formed a function, but getting into, the more intricate, feather patterns and the more intricate details of the genetic traits was something that really appealed to me. So I was part of the Sustainable Poultry Network. I was one of the certified flocks with the Sustainable Poultry Network. And this was one of the breeds that some of the people in there had actually worked with. So between that, and there was also another local breeder near me that had been working on them as well and actually breeding to standard. So I was able to get really good stock.
That's great. Well, do you have any other marketing advice for our listeners today as they're setting up their chicken businesses?
Yeah, I would say, probably the biggest thing is to understand the why of what you're doing, and being able to convey that to other people. The fact that it's heritage isn't going to matter to people. What's going to matter to other people is why this is important to you and why it should matter to them. So that's probably the biggest, best nugget that I have for that is that it's all, and the other thing is make sure that whatever you do not underprice your product. I mean, what we are doing is incredibly special. And just the conservation of farmland, the conservation of these breeding skills, these are all things that are critically important to national security and regional food security. The fact that we've got, these pockets of regionally produced genetics, that in case something does happen, that we're able to perform. Like in our case, we were able to, hatch and breed chicks whenever, and turkey poults whenever people were having trouble getting chicks in last year, that we were able to do that, and we were able to help supply, the market, our local market with, with meat and eggs and other growers with chicks. And that to me is one of the one of the most amazing things about about especially the poultry, the heritage poultry, is that we are able to sustain them genetically and be able to breed them and reproduce them locally. So they're truly a local, truly a sustainable product. Now, with that said, that when you start talking about what the value of local is, I mean, the value of local is so much more than just a cute thing that that you put on a handbag or a tote bag or something. People support local food because it makes them feel good, but the true value of local food is conserving life-sustaining resources for our community, just in case something happens like a pandemic. So supporting local food, make sure we have skilled food producers in our community, local food producing capacity in our region, regionally adapted plant and animal genetics in a small biodiverse herds and flocks, so that we can protect biosecurity and conservation of the environment. So what we are doing is critically important, but beyond that, it has great value that goes way beyond meat. It is not just meat. It is not just eggs. When people buy our products, they are contributing to the conservation of a rare breed, of an endangered breed, of conservation of the environment. I mean, this is serious work, and it should be valued. And I think that one of the big mistakes that people make whenever they start marketing their product is that they try to compare it to a commodity food product, where we can never do that. Our animals were bypassed from commercial food production for a reason. They're not efficient. They are not the least cost alternative. And what we're bringing to market is incredibly special and important. And we need to be able to convey to people why that's important to us, so that they understand what they are getting into and what they are buying, and why it should matter to them. There's a lot of people who are looking for permission to eat meat. And we can provide that, because we're providing food that's more than just just a mass-produced quantity of food. We're producing something that really makes a difference and matters. So I think that's probably, does that answer the question? I kind of went off on a rail there.
Absolutely. No, that was great. That was all important, great stuff. So thank you for that.
I was gonna say, beats me. I don't know if you answered the question or not, because internet just blipped me out of existence. So
Welcome back.
I don't know what I missed, but great answer, whatever the question was. Oh man, yeah, I apologize for that, guys. Other questions? Any other questions? Clearly, I can't be here today.
That's why I turn the video off here. It's like if I try to put the video on, it's like I'm constantly frozen.
Oh no, like my internet just down. It's probably still down. So I'm using cellular service. So I'm glad this was on Zoom. Yeah, Brittany, do we have any other questions?
No, I don't think so. Did you have more questions for Shelley?
Oh, plenty. So it's Monday, y'all, if you can tell, and this is great. We have Shelley Oswald here today, and she has been a delight so far. Shelley, I had one question about, really crafting that elevator speech. Kind of give a pep talk. Sounds like you were giving a pep talk earlier, but give a pep talk to all our farmers who are raising breeds and are kind of struggling to capture the true value and essence as they articulate or discuss the breed that they're raising to someone who knows nothing about the breed. Talk about how to craft an excellent elevator speech for farmers with regards to heritage breeds.
Well, actually, it's interesting you say that because, I'm always struggling with that. One of the resources that I've used and that, is constantly helping me refine that is Don Miller and his Business Made Simple University. And he has, you create a brand script and you learn how to talk about what you're doing. But it comes back to the why, though. It comes back to the why it matters and why it matters to you. And it, people talk about, oh, well, what's their avatar and, what's their customer? Well, it really shouldn't be that. It should be, why does this matter to you and why should it matter to them and who is it going to matter to? And then once you figure out why it really matters to you, then you could say to somebody, hey, how local food is, more than being cute, that do you remember during the pandemic, how grocery store shelves were empty? Well, all these local producers came forward and it was amazing the amount of food that they were able to get to their local community. This is what I do. And I think that the passion and excitement that you have for what you do comes through. Because you're talking about what you love and you don't want to get technical about it, but you want to explain to people why it should matter to them, why it matters to you and why it should matter to them. And I think that to me is like the key of the elevator speech, because we just finished up, or we're finishing up right now, a 3-year value-added producer grant. And it was for marketing, and it was, learning how to market. And I spent a lot of money and, with great support from the USDA. But, after all of that, it all comes down to it's very simple. Just explain to people why what you're doing should matter and what the value is in it. That what problem does it solve for somebody else?
Right. Yes, and yes, and more yeses. When you were talking, one thing that I thought about was I think, probably 10 or 12 years old, and I went to the North Carolina Zoo in Asheboro, North Carolina. And I remember going to the polar bear exhibit, and the zookeeper there was talking about, we can, talk about how the glacier ice caps are melting and this and that, and the polar bears' habitats being lost, and the number of polar bears that have died this is like over a decade ago. How polar bears are dying off here and dying off there. But that doesn't resonate with people. Numbers don't resonate with people. But what's important is sharing that story of the polar bear and getting to the heart of the matter, connecting people through the heart rather than through the head. Because people remember really well how their heart's affected by something more so than the knowledge they're able to retain off of just statistics. And so I'd love to apply that same wisdom, that same information when it comes to heritage breeds. There is a history of every breed, and that history is rich and fascinating and full of culture and full of life. But at the same time, that's in the past. What are you doing as a farmer raising heritage breeds? And why is what you do important? And so, Shelley, thank you for just refining it down to what's really important. Not simply the breed, but why you love the breed. And being able to articulate that in a way where people can resonate with that. Because everyone has a different audience. What you say to a potential chef client might be different to what you say to somebody who you're selling to at a farmer's market, but if you're passionate if you have an understanding of why you do what you do and why you enjoy doing what you do, then 9 times out of 10, you'll be able to figure that out. I think, and I've mentioned this, and maybe not in Marketing Mondays, but just in general with other farmers, you know, I feel like there's a lot of deep-seated insecurity of the value of people's time, energy, and products, and that's also translating to a deep insecurity about how they identify with themselves and how they view themselves. And so I've been helping some farmers, kind of coaching them out of looking at their time not being valuable. That's why they're not paying themselves. That's why they're not, oh, well, you know, I don't want to, it's okay. I just do this because I love doing it. That's okay, but you can get paid for that too. You know, or the price of a product, like, oh, well, you know, I don't want, you know, the other farmers are doing it for that much, and I don't want to, I just don't want to, you know, ruffle any feathers, right? And I'm like, but your cost of production are this. You need to at least sell to a little bit over this, you know? And so I realized that it was never a marketing issue like I thought it was. It was an internal issue. And so if you're struggling as a farmer to really appreciate your product for its full worth, sell your product for its full worth, articulate your product for its full worth, the breed for its full worth, then really start diving deep as to why that is. I'm not getting into like counseling or anything like that, but I just think it's important that, you know, if you're hitting a roadblock, seeing from a different perspective why that is really important. So again, Shelley, thank you for answering that question. I did have another one.
Add a little bit?
Yes.
Can I add a little bit to
Yeah.
something? Okay. When
Go
you
ahead.
start talking about, when you start talking about that value, the fact that people don't think that they should be charging what their time is worth and what their product is worth and what it costs them to produce it, that this is something that goes across multiple different businesses, that people are meant to feel bad when they think about profit and the fact that they need to be profitable when they're doing something. Profit is not a dirty word. Profit is what you need to do to be sustainable. People talk about sustainability, but if you look at the actual definition for sustainability on a National Sustainable Agriculture, Association, when you look at their definition of sustainability, that means financially sustainable. If we are not forging a way for financial sustainability in what we are doing, we are undercutting the ability of our neighboring farmer, our neighboring heritage breeder, everybody else who is trying to be sustainable, that we are undercutting all of that. And we are actually undercutting the conservation of these rare breeds. If we don't do this, if we are not sustainable in what we do and sustainable in conserving the farmland and the food producing capacity and these food skills, if we do not charge what we need to charge to make sure that these are conserved properly and that we can do this without undercutting somebody else or without, contributing all of our lifeblood into it, that we are actually doing a disservice to conservation. So we need to make sure that we are doing what we can to be financially sustainable. And that means that we need to charge for our time. We need to know what our costs are, that we need to look at profit as being something that is desirable, because that's something that we can use to invest in perhaps more farmland. But whenever you've got economists, farm economists saying that farmers cannot afford to buy farmland, and then people start wondering why the age of farmers is going up. Well, it's because who can afford to do it except for somebody who's retired? This is not sustainable, and this is not good for us. We cannot be exporting our money out of this country, to buy food from a foreign country and not be able to have food producing capacity and skills here. So, I mean, this is for people who are conservation minded, that looking at how to do it and how to do it profitably. I mean, you need to do it efficiently. You can't be haphazard with it. You need to be careful. You need to be efficient with it, but you need to do it profitably. Thanks for letting me jump on that horse.
Amen, Shelley. Amen. Oh my goodness, y'all. Again, Shelley Oswald here. Ain't she amazing? If you think she's amazing, just put in the comment section. She's amazing. Okay, so kind of going off on that. A lot of people probably heard of the bottom line, which is money, right? It seems like a lot of folks in our little niche field of agriculture fall more into the triple bottom line, which touches on environmental stewardship, touches on community equity, as well as profitability, right? And so with that, a lot of our farmers, I've noticed, me personally, while working with different breed associations, different breeders, different farmers, is that we tend to often focus on the community aspect and the environmental stewardship aspect, but we almost 90% of the time neglect the profitability aspect of your farm. I always tell people, farming is business. I say it across the country. I say it when I go overseas to East Africa. Farming is a business. Doesn't matter where you are. Even if you are homesteading, there is something called home economics. It used to be taught in school, right? There was a reason why it was taught in school, because even at a home level, even if you're raising chickens. Sorry, this is not swine month, but we're past that. If you're raising a couple of chickens, you still got to feed them, right? You're still putting time and energy into that, right? And so just seeing like, okay, so I spend 2 hours a day on chickens. So if I paid myself $15 an hour, basically $30, right? Then feed, I spend X amount of dollars on feed a month. Okay, so then this is how much it costs to raise these number of chickens for a month, right? And you can start seeing what that will look like for a year. And then you're like, wow, I could totally change this. That way I'm not losing money. I can actually make more money doing something a different way, or, I can conserve money and reduce my costs a different way. So being able to have that information and utilizing that information in a way to make you more profitable through reduction of costs, or through maybe upscaling just enough to where you're actually able to sell into a market is really important. So again, this is why we have Marketing Mondays. This is why I brought this idea to the Livestock Conservancy and had so much support from all the staff who were wanting to do this even before I came, because we understand that farmers need to be profitable. In order for these breeds, these heritage breeds to exist, some people can do it and say, hey, you know what, I'm retired, it's okay. I've got my horses, my sheep, my goats, my pigs. I don't got to worry about that. Okay, we're not talking to you then. We love you. But being able to focus on the people who are wanting to make a profit, wanting to even make a living off of this, we got to go through what it looks like to be profitable. And so I'm extraordinarily grateful that we have people like Shelley that can be examples of what it looks like to be profitable when it comes to raising chickens. And so, guys, continue to come every month. We're going to have a species for every month. So if you're interested in learning more about Marketing Mondays and how you can be profitable with your species and your breed, definitely check us out. Do you have any questions from the audience so far?
It's just looking like a lot of love for Shelley, that you're fantastic and amazing, and all the things that we've talked about today have been really helpful, and a lot of like, yeah, in agreement. So I think you're hitting all the highlights. Shelley, did you have anything you wanted to plug today?
Well, one thing I wanted to add to what Ryan was saying is that the people who are hobbyists and selling like maybe a little bit at the farmer's market or selling their local eggs, that they contribute to the economy too, because whenever they sell their product for less money than it costs to produce, or at least what somebody trying to make a profit on it would sell it for, that they devalue the whole market and undercut the whole conservation thing that they actually believe deeply in. And I think it's something that we just don't talk about this enough. And I think it's something that we need to come to the realization that if we really want to do these things, that profitability matters. So yeah, so you know, profit first. That's one of the things that I've done, the cash flow management system. And you know, Mike Michalowicz has a great book, and then I'm working on building some courses for, you know, profit for farmers, and also working on you know, putting together some materials for you know, for QuickBooks. So yeah, that's about yeah, that's about that. So any other questions about anything?
Okay, sounds like, did she cut off? Yeah, do we have any more questions from the audience? Because I know I could ask like 10 more questions, but I think we've done talked so good, Shelley, that it's almost a shame that we have to cut it at an hour. But we know that we all gotta get back to our lives. But yeah, Brittany, do we got any more questions, comments, or do we just got love so far?
We've just got lots of love. I think Jean asked, where do we look for grants? Do you have anywhere specific that you look for grants? I know we've got a link on our website, and sometimes we post them on social. But
well, here's some reality of grants. Don't look for grants to fund your farm, because it's going to be painful, because the majority of grants you need to put you know, matching funds towards. I know that for the value added producer grant that I did, it was a 64-page application in a competitive you know, grant thing. And it was a $15,000 grant, which meant that we had a small portion of that we were able to use our animals to match, but that was $13,000 out of my own money that went to marketing. So, you know, whenever you're looking at grants, you know, don't look at that as being the foundation. You know, just find you know, good ways to learn how to, you know, do your basic marketing and your messaging, you know, and go forth. I mean, there's so much that you know, I look at now that you know, I spent so much money on that grant, and the reality is that I could have done it on, you know, like just a small fraction of that money.
Lessons learned in that.
Yeah,
yeah, if I could get expensive lessons to learn. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
You know, and now everyone else knows, oh, I don't have to make that mistake. That's
Yes.
the beauty of Marketing Monday. That's the beauty of having someone who's a pro at this. Also, you can be a pro and make mistakes, y'all. Did y'all know that? Did y'all know you can be a pro and still make mistakes? You're in farming. Farming's not perfect, and you sure aren't either. And that's okay, because that's the reality of it all. But the cool thing is that we can have grace for ourselves and understanding that we're going to fail, we're going to make mistakes, but every good businessman has failed, right? Again, farming is business. Going back to what you had said earlier, Shelley, you know, one thing that I thought about was the nonprofit model, and how, you know, a lot of people who are looking for a lot of grants, that works really well if you're a nonprofit farm. Even then, it can be kind of hard. But one thing I would recommend, again, focusing on not necessarily how you can acquire funding, but how you can make your enterprise great. Mm-hmm. Putting more energy into that. I'm a professional grant reviewer. I review grants for many different organizations. And by grants, I mean grant applications that relate to farmers. And so I can tell you, I've graded grants that only was 1 page. I've graded grant applications that were at least 20 pages and asked for a lot of detailed information. And that's one thing about that I've noticed as a grant reviewer is that there are a lot of farmers who don't quite understand. One second. Sorry, I had an alarm go off. There are a lot of farmers who don't quite understand record keeping, business management. And because farmers don't tend to understand those things, their applications tend to not be all that great. I know when I'm grading some of them, I'm like, you talked about, like, just theoretically speaking, I'm like, okay, so I'm reading this, and why is this person said they can make $20,000 by implementing this new enterprise, but they don't have any data or information to support it? Where is this coming from? Where are these numbers coming? Guys, where are these numbers coming from? Tell me, I need to know. But seriously, you know, if you're thinking about doing grants, the best grants, me, again, reviewing grants for over 4 years now, I think maybe even 5, I've learned that the best grants are ones that have a strong understanding of market analysis, a strong background of record keeping, and really treating your farm like a business. So start doing that now, and as you apply for these USDA grants, and even some of these local nonprofit grants within your state or within your region, you'll be better prepared. And honestly, that grant reviewer is going to look at your grant and they're going to say, well, thank God, it's about time I got a good grant with people who actually understand numbers. You know, so if you're thinking about doing grant work, you know, doing grants to get funding for different projects, shoot me an email, let me know. I'm not going to walk you through the grant per se, but I can kind of give you an understanding of what to look for with grants. Other than that, I think we can wrap this up, Brittany. How are you feeling? You think that worked? We got any more questions we need to answer?
I don't think so. I think everybody just say, keep preaching. So
Keep preaching. Yeah, praise the Lord. I mean, sorry, it's just chicken mouth. Anyways, well, guys, thank you for being here. If you've enjoyed this content, definitely consider being a member of the Livestock Conservancy. We have great resources for you that we give for free. We do give some stuff that comes exclusively as a member. But if you're interested, it's a $45 annual fee, or you can be like me, a conservation champion. I only pay $4 a month. You know, cheaper than a cup of Starbucks coffee. And that allows for me to support not just the pigs that I love, but also the chickens and the horses and the sheep and the goat breeds that are underneath our conservation priority list. So again, definitely consider that as an option towards conservation for heritage breeds in a small way. Other than that, Brittany, I'll let you take it away.
well, thank you to all of our members and supporters. We heart you. We love you. Thank you. And next month, we hope you'll tune in again. We are celebrating rabbits, so get excited. Yeah. They make, we hope they make you happy. I don't know. Yes. Anyway, thank you for tuning in today. We'll be back again next month, same time, last Monday at 2:00 2 Eastern time. Tomorrow is our last chicken chat. We'll be talking with a veterinarian who's a poultry veterinarian. So if you've got questions about your chickens you've always wanted answered, please tune in and let us know. And we'll see you again real soon. Have a good one, y'all. Bye.